All right, can everybody see my screen?
Yes, sir.
All right, we're gonna hit it then. All right, hey everybody. As Jack said, I'm Dean Atchison. I am a Senior Director of Content Experience at Salesforce, and I've been with the company almost 13 years.
And I'm Fiona Moriarty. I'm a lead technical writer, and I focus typically on onboarding and in-app user experience. And I have been at Salesforce for just over 4 years.
Great, cool. All right, so just jump right into it. I'll give you a quick overview of what our task was that we were trying to solve. And as the title of our presentation implies, our task was to turn trial users into paying customers. And this was for a relatively new product called Essentials. And Essentials was for our small, medium-sized businesses, which was new to us. Salesforce is very strong in the enterprise market, but we had not focused on what we call the SMB market before. And so this is a new challenge for us. And our conversion rate from trial users to paying customers was actually, to be honest, pretty abysmal. So our task was also then to use in-app content experiences to communicate the value of the product really quickly to customers. And there are basically two parts to Essentials. There was a sales product, which helps you sell more efficiently your products and services. And there's also a service aspect of Essentials that helps you support your existing customers more efficiently and effectively.
Awesome. So you may be thinking, what's so hard about that? And for us, the first and largest challenge we were looking at was that we were just a small team of 2 writers that were covering the entire product. And additionally, as Dean mentioned, this new group of customers were pre-sales, and typically a technical writer at Salesforce is writing documentation and UI text for customers that have already bought in and really grabbed onto the reasons why Salesforce is great. So we really needed to convince these folks, first of all, that they needed Salesforce, and second of all, that it was going to improve their working life. And finally, we lacked data and metrics to really show us how we were doing and if what we were doing was successful. So that really made it hard for us to start making a dent on converting these users.
Great. And there were 4 main ingredients that we contributed to our success in being able to convert these trial users to paying customers. The first one was we were embedded on the product team. So the product team includes UX designers, content writers, technical writers, and engineering. And being embedded on the team meant that we were part of the design process right from the start, and we had access to the engineers who would help implement and instrument some of the data that we needed. The other benefit that we had was right off the bat, everyone was very aligned on our overall goal. The whole business unit understood that our conversion rate from trial customers to paying customers was really not where it needed to be, and it was all hands on deck to fix that problem. And I bolded these last 2 items because this is where we really focused and where our real challenges were. We finally got access to useful data. We did not have that data initially, and it took quite a while to actually get the data that we needed, as Fiona will explain. And then once we had this data, we used the data to test and optimize every step in our onboarding experience. So we did A/B testing. We looked at the metrics to guide our way, and Fiona will go into that a little bit more shortly.
Awesome. And just like Dean mentioned, the data portion of this is really where we started making some big changes and where we really were lucky to have alignment across the organization and support, because it's not just adding a Google Analytics tracking tag to a few different lines of your content. It was really instrumenting the product, which meant adding code snippets into the different components of the product. So that we would be able to see exactly what was going on, if users were, reading an asset and then completing an action afterwards. So with that, it took about 2 to 6 months for us to completely instrument the entire product. So the time and the resources we got from the rest of our colleagues was incredibly valuable and totally worth it, but we really needed that cross-functional buy-in across our team.
And to just give you a little bit of an overview of what our onboarding experience was and why it was so important. So we knew going into this that 3 out of 4 of our trial users did not return after day 1. So that means they signed up for a trial, they logged in, and then 75% of them never came back. And so onboarding was really vital to the product and user success. And when we even did a test, when we removed the entire onboarding experience, it caused our conversion rate to plummet from about 5% to only 2%. So this was great data that we could use to emphasize the importance of focusing on the onboarding experience. And we tried a few different strategies and tools in our onboarding experience. One of them was a welcome mat, which Fiona will show in the next screen. And this is basically what we call a blocking modal, that when users first log in, they get presented with a window that they cannot, and it prevents them from interacting with the app. And so it introduces the user to essentials. We also used what we call a jobs to be done modal or window. So jobs to be done is a very common term now. It's a framework, but it's basically honing in on what the trial user or your customer is really trying to get done with your product. So jobs to be done was a window where we asked them a couple questions to get a better idea of why they were coming to Essentials. We also use walkthroughs, and you can think of this as an interactive guided tour that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. And then we also had a pocket guide. And the pocket guide is very similar to a help menu, although a little bit more robust. And we'll show you screenshots of each of these coming up.
Okay, so jumping into what we're calling it our first run experience, because really it's what happens to the user the first time they entered the app. And as Dean mentioned, this is what a welcome mat initially looked like for us. The 4 links that you would see on the right-hand side were walkthroughs, and what you see on the left is a small progress bar to show the user how many of the steps that they've completed to getting started. And this was really our first pass at giving users some good context before they jumped into the app. But what we found is that they were getting frustrated, first of all, because they couldn't get back to the resources easily. They didn't know how to re-trigger the welcome mat. They didn't know if I, left a resource unchecked, does that mean that I'm not ready to get started and to start using the product? So there were some mixed signals in there that caused some user confusion. So once we went through the welcome mat, Dean, if you wouldn't mind going to the next slide, we phased that out, and then we brought in, as Dean mentioned, the jobs to be done experience. And what you're seeing on the left-hand side is the first iteration of that. And what we were trying to understand was why users were coming to Essentials, because that would allow us to tailor the content more specifically to their needs. We gave them a lot of options to start with. We even allowed them to say like, hey, I don't even know what I'm doing here. And maybe somebody sent me a link to this trial and I just want to get started. And what we found was that with that many options, folks were just opting out of it completely. It was overwhelming. So we narrowed it down. We had more of a clear point of view, as you see on the screen on the right. And not only did we get better data to show what users were coming to us to understand, it also allowed us to really see what assets we could tailor to the user once they entered into the app. So with that, we had far more completions and we got more useful data out of the experience. So it was a win-win for everybody.
And as I mentioned, another aspect of our onboarding experience was our interactive guided tours, walkthroughs. And so we knew from the data that users who started a walkthrough were 16% more likely to convert to a paying customer. And if a trial user actually completed a walkthrough, they were 40% more likely to convert. And then we also knew that there was a very sharp drop-off rate after step 4. So some of our initial walkthroughs were 7, 8, 9 steps long. And we saw the data that the vast majority of our trial users did not get past step 4. So we used all of this information, and what we did is we made the walkthroughs more accessible and prominent by moving them up in the welcome mat and the pocket guide so that they were the most prominent resource that they saw when they first logged in. And because walkthroughs had such a great completion rate compared to any other content that we surfaced in the app. And then we also went through, and Fiona did a great job of analyzing all of our walkthroughs, and there was about half a dozen, and she shortened all of them by numerous steps. So they became 4 to 5 steps to boost that completion rate up.
Awesome. And as Dean mentioned previously, one of the things we also used was called the Pocket Guide. And once we implemented the jobs to be done screen, which I showed previously, the selections the customer made then influenced what they saw in this Pocket Guide. And on the left-hand side, you see what we call the dumber version of this asset, because it wasn't, it didn't change based on the user's selections. And that was because we didn't have enough resources, we didn't have enough information to understand what the user wanted here. But once we got enough data to show what the users were really looking for, we were able to then customize the assets offered on the right-hand side based on the user's experience level. So that was pretty interesting for us for a couple of different reasons. We were able to see that any content that was branded with getting started or some sort of like get up and running with Salesforce language was really what customers responded to the strongest. It helped those new users really find their footing with the app. And we were also able to see that given the option between completing the first card, which you see the first 4 steps on the right-hand side, and then a second card is offered with additional advanced resources, there was a 7,000 view drop-off between step 1 and step 2. So whatever we were going to show our users really needed to be seen on that first page, because it wasn't likely that they were going to see it on the second page. Great. So what we can happily say as our final results is that our current baseline for conversion is about 6%. And so today, as it goes, if a user opens the Pocket Guide and accesses our resources, we're looking at almost a double in conversion rate. So we're really showing the value of what content can do for our users. And with that, and this is really the most important step that we then take, is what do we do with that data? So now when the user enters the app for the first time, that Pocket Guide is wide open for them to explore and see all of the different assets so that they're more likely to start seeing the things that they need to be successful. So it's not just getting the metrics on the content, it's what you can do with it, which really makes a difference.
Right, and then we also had a few unexpected pleasant surprises along the way. So internally, we started getting writers across the company started reaching out to us for advice on how they could get their teams to instrument their products to capture similar data. Fiona was getting pinged, I think it was multiple times a week, and she still gets pinged for wanting her to come present how she talked to her team into this. A lot of the other product areas just did not have the instrumentation. And this really started a conversation across our organization about the importance of data and what it can do to help onboard users and, frankly, increase product adoption. The other great benefit was, when it came time for headcount, I did not even have to ask for a third headcount. Somebody, headcount freed up. They came to me and said, content's been such a core part of this overall experience and it's been so successful. Do you need another headcount? And which, of course, I said yes. So we now have a whopping 3 writers on Essentials, and the onboarding experience and the importance of data continues to be front and center in everything that we do. And it's been so exciting for Fiona and I to be part of those conversations. Because people are coming to us to have those conversations instead of us always pushing ourselves and pushing that topic to others. So, and that's it. Jack, back to you. I don't know if we want to open up for questions or if that's going to come later.
But at least we are looking at our Essentials mascot, Koa, who is the pinnacle of our onboarding strategy, really.
Yeah, any questions in the chat?
I didn't see anything come through in the meantime, but.
While we're waiting for Jack. Oh, Jack's
I'm here. Okay. All right, I'm here. I have been monitoring the Slack chat room and there's no questions right now, but we do have our morning recap coming up in a little less than an hour, so there's plenty of time to get more questions in. So at this point, Dean and Fiona, thank you very much.
Thanks.
Awesome.